As all the structures of our former reality come tumbling down, it can feel like a giant river is racing through our culture, through our world, and through our lives. And we need to learn how to navigate this river. We need to learn how to harness the energies that shape the river and shape our lives. And today's guest, HeatherAsh Amara, will be talking with us about these energies of wild, willing, and wise. Join us to find out more.
Soul Nectar Show, the Soul Nectar Show. You're invited, delighted to discover who you are. Anything is possible if you believe. So join us on this beautiful journey. Soul Nectar Show. Soul Nectar Show.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our stories, the connection to that which is greater than us, to the big mystery beyond the veil, to those synchronistic moments that lead us inexorably to a deeper understanding of who we are and what we're doing here on planet Earth at this time of the Great Awakening. And woo, there's a lot going on the planet, everybody. I'm your host, Kerri Hummingbird, as you know, and I love having these conversations week after week, just exploring different topics. And I love to invite people that I know to come on and share some wisdom with us for these times. And I couldn't think of anybody better than to have my first real mentor, HeatherAsh Amara, come on and come talk to us about these wild times that we're in that are, you know, it is a little bit like a rushing river, you guys. And, you know, we need to have some river skills. And so HeatherAsh has just completed her newest book called Wild, Willing, and Wise. And I have a copy of it. And I'm going to see you tomorrow night, HeatherAsh. Yeah, so excited. This book is offering us a way to harness energies of wildness, of willingness, and of wisdom to be able to know when to paddle, when to rest, and when to jump naked into the river of life. And it also, for those of you who love these conversations about divine feminine, this is a reimagining of the maiden, mother, and crone archetypes, which is super cool. And we're going to be talking about this with HeatherAsh today. And if you guys don't know who she is, I'd surprise you wouldn't know who she is. But in case you don't know who she is yet, best-selling author, mentor, land steward, and she weaves together earth-based wisdom, mindfulness, and practical strategies for creative and compassionate change. She's the author of 9 books, including the bestseller Warrior Goddess Training Series and the 7 Secrets of Happy and Healthy Relationships. And she lives in New Mexico now, but she used to live in Austin, where I live, and that's where we got to know each other. And I studied and apprenticed with you for how long? Like about 6 years or something like that, a long time, the beginning of my journey. I was a very different person then. I love and bless that version of me. And I'm so grateful that she did all the work she did, because otherwise it wouldn't be who I am today and standing here with you and having this conversation. So gosh, it's just before the call, I was telling HeatherAsh how awesome it is to just see her again and to be in her energy. And if you remember, the first day that we met was at the conference, the Be the Change. And it was my first fire walk, actually, but I met you hours before that at your talk about the book that you were putting out. I can't remember what that book was at the time, and I walked into the room and there was like this gong, like a gong, kind of like vibratory energy. And I thought, what the heck is this? Who is this person? I must know. And I got to know who you are pretty intimately. And that was really beautiful, the time we spent together, and so grateful for you and the work that you do in the world. And it's so great to have you coming back to Austin tomorrow. By the time this goes out, this will have already happened. But by the way, guys, this is 888 portal. So like we're having this conversation on 888 the Lion's Gate. So let's activate some goodness today. Yeah. So I thank you for being here in your traveling home. And I'm so grateful to have you make some space to have this conversation.
Thanks, Kerri. It's such a delight to be here with you. And I'm halfway between, well, I'm almost off and like 4 hours out. So I love that I can just pull over and set up the internet and do an interview with you.
And that's wild. I mean, that's really that for a lot of people, that's living on the edge, right? It's like, nope, I can just set up here, do my internet, and have the conversation.
Yes, I'm in Independence, Texas right now. I'm like, this will work.
That's a great vibration.
Right?
Fantastic.
Yes. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about his. I mean, if you guys haven't read her books, I mean, Warrior Goddess Training is a beautiful book. I was actually around at the beginning of that cultivation of that medicine. Was a culmination of years and years and years of deep work that you've been doing with women to then put it all together in this package called Warrior Goddess Training, which is now launched you into, I don't know, like a decade of work in that regard, something like that, maybe a little bit less. I can't remember, but you know, time is fluid, as we know. But that's amazing. And now you've got this book, which I honestly really enjoyed, The Wild, Willing, and the Wise. So tell us a little bit about your inspiration for bringing this out right now in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I started working on this book 3 years ago, and it actually started out as a very serious memoir about my divorce and like which Kerri was in the middle of. And so
Yeah.
like there was a lot going on at that time. And it's a really beautiful, like I finished the first rough draft. It was really emotional to write it. And I talked to my business coach and she's like, do you really want to be writing such a difficult book and then having to live it for the next year while you, because you have to live the book once you publish it because you're talking about it all the time. And I was like, nah, probably not. So we talked about it. And what I recognized is that I needed more lightness in my life. This was mid-pandemic. There was so much change happening around us. And I thought, what do we humans need? And I had been reading a couple really lighthearted books that were like deep workbooks around. One was around self-love and one was around something else. And I was like, yeah, I want to write something like that. That feels good. And the inspiration of bringing in the maiden, mother, and crone, I've been teaching about that. And I had this just opening of like, could I do these two things together? Could I do something that was a workbook and use maiden, mother, crone as the kind of scaffolding? So that was the original seed. And then, of course, it did its own thing as they do these baby books.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like it's, you know, for me, when I look in the landscape in our culture and in our world right now, the river is racing. Like it is really wild. It's unpredictable. It's tearing that patriarchal Piscean age down to the ground, to the nuts and bolts, down to like the studs, and even taking the foundation away. And wow, you know, we all prayed for this, but now what? Right?
Whoa, yeah.
Be like, woohoo, we've been praying hard for this for decades, right? And here it is. And we're like, whoa, where's my life preserver? You know, like, how are we going to navigate this time?
Exactly. And that's what the book is really about, skill building in both rough times, but also in calm waters. Because we also need to cultivate skills of rest and cultivate skills of looking at the beauty around us and reviving and getting energy for when the next rapid comes. Otherwise, we're not going to be sustainable. So I love just each of us understanding, yeah, the river, it's high. There's lots of rapids and we still must play and jump in the river naked. We still must learn how to rest. And we need more skills for how to navigate so that we're not getting tipped over all the time in our boats, that we can actually stay centered in our own boats and be on a journey with other people.
Yay. Being on a journey with other people, that's the piece that is really up right now, right? Like this, we're moving into the Aquarian age, and that is all about relationships. It's about our relationship to ourselves, our inner voices, our relationship to the outer world, each other, you know, family, nature, all of our relations, right? All these things that got forgotten in the me conversation, now turning to we. So that navigating, that's challenging because nothing is really, the structures are morphing, right? Things are moving around. So what are some tips you have for how to navigate the shift and changes. I mean, if people had their, sort of sense of safety from the structures, now what?
Yes. I'd say first it's about really assessing where we each individually are and also where we are as a collective. So that's why the river is such a great metaphor, because if we're like, okay, is as a collective right now, the river's really high, it's really unpredictable. There's places where we've never navigated before. And then we also need to then be honest about where we're at as a little being on the river. So as we start, the first step is the awareness of what's happening in the river and where am I at? So then we can build skills. So if we know, like, I'm in the water all the time, or I'm trying to paddle upstream all the time, or I've just like portaged out and I'm like I'm hiding by the shore. So the first part of the book is a little quiz that says, how are you in relationship to the river? And it's fun. And it's basically like, the river should do what I want it to do. What is wrong with the river? Like, or, I'm not getting on the river. It's way too dangerous. So we get to then, in a fun way, be like, oh yeah, I'm paddling upstream. Okay, got it. And then without judgment, to then start to look at what energy do we need more of? What energy do we need more of? And that's when I first started doing the book, it was the Maiden, Mother, Crone, but I realized that it's limited because I wanted it to be gender neutral. And I also, when I talk to people about those three qualities, often they would talk about age. That Maiden was youth, Mother was middle age, and Crone was old age. And I'm like, no, they're energies. They're not sequential or linear.
You mean you're not stuck in a box? Like, you don't have, like, once you get to Crone, you're like, that's the only energy you can play with ever again. You're like in the Crone jail,
Yeah.
Like, exactly. You can't be wild anymore. You just got to always be
done.
wise.
Yeah, exactly. And all you young ones, like, oh, you're just maidens. You have no wisdom to share. So I'm like, let's blow that up. Like, we're blowing everything else up. We're blowing gender up. Yay. We're blowing youth doesn't have any information and elders are always wise. Also blow that up.
Yeah.
And so to come up with the three energy, like I did a lot of meditation. Wild. We all need more wild, I think, right? To be more feral in a way, especially if structure breaks down, to find our wild again, and that creativity and curiosity and excitement and joy, regardless of what's happening around us. And the willing energy is that place where we're birthing something and where we need to be willing to show up no matter what. And there's times it's really difficult. And there's times that we don't want to be up at 3 a.m. with the vomiting child, or we don't want to be up against a deadline that's really hard to bring through, that place where we're like, I don't know, I'm going to do this, but we stay in. And the willing for me is about sustainability, which if we're going to be in big times of change, we have to be sustainable and not burn ourselves out. So that's the willing energy. And then the wise is the place where we drop into our stillness, where we let go of whatever is happening in the moment, and we're open to the long journey of our soul and the world's transformation. And we're willing to look at what's happening in the biggest picture possible and rest into that with compassion. So those are the three energies, the three guides I think of that are our guides for the river, for being on the river. And they're internal, but they're also external. We can also look for, okay, I need more wild. Where do I find that? What does it look like?
I actually love this because I've been exploring that within myself, like the energy of wild. Like, for a time, I had a lot of wild energy and I was just kind of doing whatever I felt like. And I didn't really think about the consequences or anything like that. I was just like, I'm just doing what I'm doing. And I really don't care if anybody likes it or hates it or whatever. I'm just going to do what I need to do. That has consequences, I found out, So now that I'm in the wisdom of that, is like, oh, I want to be more measured with my wildness. I want to be more aware of my surroundings. I want to be more conscious about how I bring my wild forward, and in a way that really honors the space I'm in. Really want to be present to where I'm at, but sometimes that can become a little trap for me to not bring out what really is coming through. Wildness just comes through. It's not an energy that you sit back, assess, and review and figure out if that's the correct thing. And that's what I've been doing a lot from the wisdom part. Like, oh, is this really how I want to speak in the world? Is this really what I want to say about this political climate or whatever's happening? And then also because I have way too much wisdom now, like from all these studies, then it's like, can I be empty? Can I just be the empty cup? Can I be the blank canvas? Can I go back to beginner's mind? And I had this, I lead my groups on shamanic journeys, and I had this journey to an elder in the Karo tradition, which we study. And the elder said to me during the meditation, with all this knowledge in your head, how will you keep joy in your heart? And it really touched me. So speak a little bit to that. Like, how do we keep joy in our hearts with everything we know from our wisdom of our years?
Yeah, absolutely. And it really is about, when we work with these three energies, sometimes we have to turn the wild down or turn the wild up. And when we're honest with ourselves and we can see there is an impact of excess wild. And so when we start to recognize that, we can start like, okay, where's the balance? And it's the same thing with the wise energy. I think of that as excess wise. Oh yeah, I already know everything. And we start like getting defeated in a way. Or there's two things that can happen with excess wild. Either we start controlling everything around us of like, oh yeah, here's what you need to do. I have the wisdom. I've worked hard for this. Let me just tell you what to do. And without actually feeling into the human about where they are on their journey, we get like, I know where you should be on your journey. Bullshit. Actually, we don't. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
I face that a lot with my 25-year-old son recently.
Oh gosh.
So,
yes,
oh yeah, I've had a whole lot of like, you don't know nothing,
Exactly. I know. I have my goddaughter is 26 and living with me, and and I'm like, I remember what it was like to be that age. Excess wise, right? That's not tested. And usually like a huge dose of wild, because not tested yet.
Well, right? and so what relaxed me around that was seeing this we went down on a vacation for my 55th birthday down to Mexico, and we went to this club, which I don't ever go to these clubs anymore, but we just went to get to the beach. We had to go to this, taboo club, and we're like, this is not a space we normally hang out anymore, but we just like, what the heck? We'll go ahead and have a drink, so we sat down, and the way in was this sign that said, bad choices make better stories. And my husband and I just laughed our butts off because we're like, this is Garrett, like he's in that spot. I don't have a good enough story. My story is too limited. I need to go experience life. And we were sitting back going, you shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing this. And it was not compatible. He needs to be wild.
Exactly. And learn. Yeah. And that's why there isn't like, I think sometimes we're like, well, just give me the prescription. How much wild should I have? How much willing? How much wise? But it's constantly changing. And what might be too much or an excess of wise for wild for one person is perfect. Like he should be in his excess wild right now, right? Like the young ones, that's part of how we learn. And then we start learning there's consequences, and then we start tempering. But it's not shutting ourselves down. And this is what I've noticed with a lot of the women that I work with, is that there's been a tendency to shut the wild down completely. To be like, oh, now I need to adult. That's dangerous. I need to shut it down. I think the patriarchy, definitely like, that's dangerous. Don't be feral. Don't be wild. Be nice and kind. And so often we can turn it down too low and have a deficiency of wild. And we need to figure out how to break out of the limits that we've created. And it's over and over and over again. We don't do any of this just once and then we're like, check, I'm now balanced wild for the rest of my life. It's flow. It's being in relationship with the river, and the river's changing constantly. So we get to learn how to change constantly with it.
Yeah, I'm really feeling what you just said. And I feel like it has to do, the shutting down of the wild as an older woman has to also do with that lifetime of repeated experience of like losing like credibility, right?
Yeah.
If you're like anything more than logical. And, you know, if you're woo, you know,
Or
or if you're
emotional at all. Yes.
spiritual, or if you have intuition. And I feel like that's what we're here dismantling as part of this. If we're going to say the river is a divine feminine just rolling on through town, which it kind of feels like it is, then hi, feminine's coming in and we're just going to whisk all those structures right down the stream, the river with us, right? It's tumultuous, but it needs to happen. And I feel like even as I say that, I love my boys. So there's no way do I want to disempower any masculine person. And that's why I think it's important to also really talk about how these energies run through, the masculine and the feminine energies run through every body, no matter what gender you identify as or that you biologically look like. It's like, it's just energies, right? And you've talked about this a lot in our training. So tell us a little bit about that and how we can all be included in this feminine river that's rolling on through town.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, you know, that's part of the whole patriarchal structure is like, oh, if the feminine like gets in power, the feminine's going to repress and do just what, you know, what's been happening. But I rarely use the words honestly feminine and masculine any longer because I feel like it's part of the old structure and we have an image in our head the moment we say those words. So that's part of what I did with warrior goddess training is that, and it's so hard because the way of our brain is wired, that goddess energy is about flow and creativity. It's the river. It's uncontrollable and unpredictable and incredibly beautiful. And all of us have that goddess wild energy that's also very deep and can be very still. And that's what's the changeable aspect of nature, we can say. And that the warrior energy is the steady, it's that intent, clear focus, what's next, linear, methodical. And that's a beautiful energy. And we also need that energy. So it's not like, oh, we only need this one energy. That's going to just create another imbalance. You know, sometimes I've seen people that are like patriarchy now. And I'm like, that's not the answer either. Mm-hmm. It's not, it's about coming back into balance and harmony with our own energies and whatever archetypes we use, whether it's warrior and goddess or whether it's wild, willing, wise, or the puma, the eagle, like whatever the metaphors are, that we understand that each of us has these energetics in our system, in our being. It's part of our divine creation. And that as a child of the divine, we have different parts, we have different flavors or different colors or different rays of energy. And so as we get to know each other, we can recognize, oh, I have a lot of warrior and I love that. And I might want to turn the goddess up a little bit, but I'm never going to be, for example, like I'm never going to be pure goddess energy. And some people are. They're very fluid and flowy, and they actually need to learn how to bring more of the warrior in, for example. So I love this idea of instead of black, white, you got to pick one, that we're tuning and that the tuning is happening. This is such a feminine thing, right? Because the patriarchy and the old structure is like, let's make it easy and get there as quickly as possible. And we're like, no, relation, like the new paradigm that's shifting that we're coming into is relational, and it's a dance. And there's joy. There can be joy even in the most difficult times. And I think that's critical for us to get fluid, joyful, and looking at where we're going.
Yeah, I'm really resonating with what you're saying. And that goddess energy is something that the river herself, you know, it's like if you're not having space, I've noticed in myself, whenever I'm not having, like, let's say I'm just completely intent and focused and like, here's my intent. What's my next message? What's my next step? Where am I going? Laser focused, right? And so I have a lot of that kind of what my husband would call yang energy from his martial arts training, right? So I have a lot of that yang. And it's like, where's my yin? And what I found is that our society that has been constructed with patriarchy is kind of built around a lot of that yang energy, but it hasn't allowed spaciousness for wild, for like wandering, like daydreaming, imagining, being, wondering what could be possible. It's like there are so many times I've gotten these like images of where we are in humanity from a higher perspective, which is that we're all kind of in this mudstorm, like this stuff's just conditioning is just flying all around and we're releasing it and it's muddy and it's just like chaotic and confusing. And we're all trying to like dream from that space what we want, but all we're dreaming is like what we already think is possible. And what they keep saying, my guides keep saying is like, no. Like there is infinite possibility. Like if we get above the storm cloud, we will see, oh, like I could light up the sky with a rainbow today, or there's like so much that's possible that in our limited, we don't know that we can do that. And the only reason I knew that was possible is because I saw the shamans move the clouds, like actually ask the clouds to move. And then the clouds moved. And then as soon as the ceremony was done, the clouds came back. So I started realizing that woke me up. There's more.
Whoa. Relationship. Yes.
So cool.
I love that. Yeah, it's so true. It's so cool. And it's like yeah, I so agree. And it's just such a beautiful image. And what popped into my head is like on the river, there's times we have to like pull the kayak out or the canoe out or the vehicle, that we have to pull it out so we can get out of the churniness and settle and see a new vision. And we need each other to help vision like that. That's having role models like the Kerri, like going places where we get out of our little bubble and realize, oh, there's more, that we can then take that back into our communities and nourish and feed and inspire our communities to also dream bigger as well.
Which takes stillness and presence, and I wouldn't say beyond meditation, because sometimes I like contemplation. It's like allowing the ideas to swirl and rise, right? So the asking of what now or what if or what more is possible, and then allowing the divine within to sort of present new ideas to us. And you had a great exercise, I remember, for this in training, of like imagining that there was a well inside of us and we could actually drop a pebble down. So would you like to lead us in something like that right now so we can all dream a bigger dream? On the 8-8 Lionsgate?
Absolutely.
Retroactively effective for everybody watching, whenever you're watching.
We're still putting the energy, seeding the energy in.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, so if everyone wants to close your eyes, if you can, if you feel comfortable doing that, and just settle in for a moment. And breathing into your heart for, what are you yearning for most in your life and for the world? So what is the thing that you're like, oh, I wish there was more of this in my life and in the world? It could be anything. It might be peace, it might be joy, it might be healing. Giving yourself permission to feel into the depths of your heart of what you're yearning for, what quality, what energy. Just breathe into that for a moment. Good. And imagine that in your heart, that you're going to bring in your wild energy, which I think of as the spark, the creativity, and the yes, and that explosion of divine expression. And so imagine that you're going to spark that energy with your inspiration and your yes, and start a fire in your heart. Your passion, your creativity, your willingness to make mistakes and be messy, which is the hallmark of wild, and how we learn and grow. Feel that wild within your heart. And then opening to call in willing, which is now, willing is the steadiness to keep the fire going, the effort and the devotion. So imagine feeding that fire with your love, with your presence. What does that fire need to be fed inside of your being? And feel your commitment inside of your body to stay steady with your yearning, to feed the fire of that yearning so that you're walking your spiritual healing path in devotion in a sustainable way to that yearning and energy. That commitment to feed your fire and to keep releasing and clearing the places that you're dampening your own fire or dimming your own light or burning yourself out. Get steady. Feel that steadiness of your willingness to keep going, even when it's challenging, your willingness to have hard conversations, your willingness to be in the unknown. And then calling in our third energy of wise, and that is about the capacity. Wise is about compassion and also being able to bring that fire into coals so that it's really sustainable over long periods of time. So as we call in the wise energy, imagine these beautiful coals that can last all night. Let's think about wood stoves that you dampen things down so that the coals last. And that's how our ancestors would move fire, if they would burn it to coals and wrap it and carry it to different places. So imagine this coal in your heart is the seed of your wisdom and the wisdom of your ancestors, the wisdom of the earth and the plants. It's the wise is our reconnection to all of life. And that this coal of our wisdom in our heart has been passed to us from our ancestors, from the divine, from life. And so feel how precious the seed of that coal is, of your wisdom, of your connection to the invisible realm. Stillness and listening deep to those coals within us. Good. And then calling in all three of those energies, just feel spark of your wild, the fire of your willingness, sustainable nourishment, and the coal wisdom seed of your wise. Good. And when you're ready, holding all three of those energies, go ahead and open your eyes.
So beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. And we can play with which energy do we need most at this time in our lives, and nurture and call and water those energies.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. I just felt so inspired to ask you. I always loved in training the beautiful meditations that you would offer from your own presence, and really deeply grounding, and lets everybody drop into ourselves and find the answer. I love that. Thank you for doing that for us.
You're welcome.
So I've just really enjoyed this conversation. I'm really grateful that this is coming out into the collective right now at this time when it would be really beneficial for a lot of people, including myself, to have wisdom like this, to anchor into a new center, with everything on the outside moving around, and trust the river. The river's got us, and whether we thought it was true or not, it's always had us. And, we've built these tiny little castles made of sand to try to control it. But maybe going along for the ride might be more fun. Maybe.
Exactly. And realizing too, the river, like, I always love, like, sometimes pausing and going, look at what's happened, like what the river's created over history. And just realizing, like, we sometimes are like, this is the most dramatic time ever in all of human history. And it's like, no, it's not. It's just a time. Like, it's just a time on the river, and that it's going to keep flowing in some way. May not look like what we thought it was going to look like, but that will continue. And so that, like you said so beautifully, we can rest into it and get more skills, learn to paddle more skillfully, so we're using less energy, and can have more joy through even the challenging things, and to rest when the opportunity arises deeply. And I love that what you said, like, it's not just about meditation, it's about living connected to that stillness. Yeah. And pausing more often.
Yeah, I think it's the time of the hummingbird. It's like stillness in motion, which Bruce Lee said was like actual martial arts, was like being stillness in motion. And yes, thank God this little bird came to me, because boy, I was never present before. So I needed a lot of help to get present. I was like, my mind was always going, and I was never in the moment. So yeah, I mean, I think that we get the help we need to get where we're going. And yeah, we're doing this together. All of us, part of the same collective.
Yeah, on the river together, for sure.
Yeah, we're all on the river. So just remember, if you're hanging out by the riverbank trying to avoid it, maybe just kind of go stick a toe out and see what it's like, you guys, and try it out. There's so much here. There's so much potential. If we just shift our perception just a tiny little bit, we might be able to see just what incredible opportunity this is right now on the planet. It's really beautiful. So grateful for you and your medicine.
Yeah.
Powerful. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Is there
Kerri.
any last invitation
You're so welcome, love.
You want to make to people? Any invitation you want to offer?
That the book has meditations that are part of it. So if folks want to go to Wild, Willing, Wise, I did meditations for each of the different energies, and also for the warrior heart practice, which I did a simple version of this really beautiful practice of helping us get out of struggle and suffering. I guess this is the best way to put it. Yeah. And stay wild, and may we keep deepening into our compassionate wisdom.
Beautiful. I love it. Oh, so much love to you. Tomorrow I'll give you a hug, and look forward to seeing you in person.
I look forward to it.
And in the meantime, everybody, go check out her book. It's Wild, Willing, and Wise. It is on Amazon. You can get a copy, or you can go check out the website to see the book tour. She's on book tour now, so you might even be able to see her, and give her a hug, get a book signed. So go check it out, and I'll put the links in the show notes below. And we're going to give kisses. So here they come, everybody. We love you. Thank you for sharing this out with everybody who might be interested. and not in any kind of like judgy way or like you really need this information way, but just kind of like, hey, this is a really cool interview. I really liked it. I'm sharing it out with you in case you might like it too. This is something I'm doing. Just share it out from your heart if you feel inspired. And we're going to give kisses. Okay, here they come, everybody. Love you guys. Thanks for coming on the show, HeatherAsh, and love you, everybody.
Kerri.
Bye for now.
Bye.
If you found even one gold nugget in this episode of Soul Nectar Show, will you do us a favor? Will you subscribe, like, and share this episode? Maybe even write a comment and let us know what you thought about it. We really, really want to engage with you at a much deeper level. Let's be part of community together. Have a great week, everyone. Bye for now. To dive in deeper to nourishing conversation, visit soulnectar.show.
Soul Nectar Show. Awaken, awaken, Nectar Show. Take a sip from the drip of nectar, from the source of who you are.